There was once a donkey who forgot his own name, not because he was old, not because he was sick, but because the world treated him like he had no name worth remembering. And if you have ever worked hard, gave everything, and still felt invisible, this story is for you. In a small dusty village surrounded by dry fields and narrow roads, there lived a donkey. He had been born in that village, raised in that village, and had worked there every single day of his life. When he was young, a kind old woman looked into his big gentle eyes. She smiled softly and said, "I will call you Bahadur." It meant brave. She said it every morning when she fed him. "Good morning, Bahadur." She said it every evening when she stroked his tired ears. "Rest now, Bahadur. You did well today." For the first time in his life, he felt seen. He felt real. He had a name. And that name meant something beautiful. But the old woman grew ill. And one quiet morning, she was gone. After she passed, the donkey was sold to a farmer who had no interest in names, no interest in gentle words, no interest in anything except how much weight the donkey could carry. From that day forward, nobody called him Bahadur, nobody called him anything kind. They called him Oi, they called him Move, they called him Stupid Animal. They called him Lazy Beast. Morning after morning, year after year, the same words. Heavy words. Words that had no warmth, no softness, no name inside them, and the donkey carried it all. He carried the farmer's grain. He carried the merchant's goods. He carried stones from the river. He carried firewood through the cold nights. He never refused, he never complained, he never stopped. Because somewhere deep inside him, he still remembered what the old woman had said. You did well today. And that one small memory kept him moving. But memories fade, especially when the world works hard to replace them with pain. The years passed like heavy stones on his back, one by one, each year harder than the last. The farmer piled more weight. The merchant demanded faster trips. The villagers pointed and complained when he slowed. Nobody ever asked, "Are you tired?" Nobody ever said, "You have worked enough." Nobody ever once said his name. And slowly, terribly slowly, the donkey began to forget. He forgot the sound of the old woman's voice. He forgot the feeling of her gentle hand. He forgot the words she had chosen just for him. Late at night, when the village was silent, he would close his eyes and search for it. That word, that warm word that had once made him feel like he mattered. But all he could hear was move, faster. Stupid animal. The name Bahadur was gone. And with it, the belief that he was brave, the belief that he was worth something. He had become exactly what they called him, nothing. He stopped lifting his head when he walked. He stopped looking at the sunrise. Every day was simply wait. Every day was simply walk. Every day was simply survive. This is what happens when the world is allowed to name you. When you let their words become your truth. When you forget who you were before they got to you. But one evening, exhausted beyond words, the donkey stopped by a still pond. His legs simply refused to continue. He stood at the edge of the water and looked down. He saw himself for the first time in years, tired eyes, a bent spine, worn hooves. He stared at his own reflection and felt nothing but shame. Then a small voice beside him said, "What is your name?" A young child looking at him with the kind of eyes that had not yet learned to be cruel. The donkey opened his mouth and realized he did not know. The child waited patiently. The donkey searched inside himself, deeper than the exhaustion, deeper than the pain, deeper than every cruel word that had been thrown at him like stones. And then from somewhere very deep he heard it, faint, distant, but real, an old woman's voice. Warm as morning light, Bahadur. The donkey's legs trembled, his eyes filled slowly, not with sadness but with recognition. He whispered it to himself, Bahadur, brave. Just then an old tortoise slowly raised his head and looked at the donkey with ancient, calm eyes. He said softly, You remembered. They took your energy. They took your years. They took your strength. But the cruelest thing they took was your name. Because when you forget your name, you forget your nature. You forget your value. You forget that you existed before them. And you will exist after them. Every burden they placed on your back you carried. Every road they sent you down you walked. That is not weakness. That is a strength so deep they were never capable of understanding it. Know your name. Say your name. Because the moment you forget who you are, you give the world permission to decide for you. Something ancient moved inside his chest. Something buried under years of weight and silence and forgetting. It rose slowly, quietly, like light returning to a room that had been dark for too long. He lifted his head. For the first time in years, he lifted it completely. He looked at the sky, still and wide. And he felt something remarkable. He felt like himself. Not the animal they had loaded with stones. Not the creature they had shouted at. Himself, Bahadur, brave. The next morning when the farmer came to load his back, the donkey stood differently. He still carried the weight. He still walked the road, but his head was up. His eyes were open. Deep inside him, in a place no one could reach, he knew his name. Friends, the world will try to name you. It will call you slow, worthless, too much, not enough. You had a name before they got to you. You had worth before they measured you. You had strength before they tested it. You are not what they called you. You are what you survived. And you are still here, still walking, still carrying, still brave, Bahadur.